Welcome to Coyote Tales, a podcast featuring life stories from Weatherford College alumni and friends. And now, from the Nan and Bob Kingsley building on the campus of Weatherford College, in the Coyote Studios, here's Brent Baker.
It is time for another edition of Coyote Tales, and we are excited to talk to our first scientist in this podcast series. She is a former Weatherford College basketball player, but now she's a paleontologist at Harvard University. Jessica Cundiff is on the line. I assume I'm talking to you in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Is that right?
Yes, you are.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate you joining us today. Curatorial Associate Collection Manager at the Museum of Comparative Zoology at Harvard University. You must have a really long business card.
I do. I do. Trying to introduce myself to people is a lengthy process.
So for someone that knows nothing about your field, and I think I might be that someone, how do you explain what you study there at Harvard?
So I study invertebrate fossils, so all the ancient organisms without backbones. And what I do is not necessarily research on these animals, but I manage the collection. So you can kind of think of me as a librarian, but instead of books, I have fossils that I organize and keep track of and check out to researchers. So I think that's the best way I can describe it, what I do for a living.
There has to be some jokes about dealing with things that have no backbone. I don't know. There's something there. I'm sure you come across it all the time, but
Sure.
We'll go back to your story and how you came up through basketball and found your way to Weatherford, Texas, et cetera. But I've got to ask you, the first day you arrive at Harvard, I don't know if it was an in-person interview, if it was that intimidating for you to be at this very, very prestigious, one of the most prestigious universities in the world?
It was, because I never thought I'd ever step foot on campus. I was in grad school at the time, and there was a position as a collections assistant that opened. And, I thought, well, maybe I'd do a phone interview, but they wanted me to fly out for an in-person interview. So that was a little nerve-wracking, being prepared, finding a suit to wear for the interview. And then I'm interviewing with, some of the top scientists in paleontology, one of which was Stephen Jay Gould, who was a paleontologist here, and he had written loads of books. Every paleontologist knew his name. He wrote a monthly article for Natural History magazine, and so a lot of people that were not scientists had read some of his essays. So that was really nerve-wracking to sit in a room and talk with him. He was very nice and very welcoming. Actually, everyone that I interviewed with were all very welcoming. And so, I realized it was this, university that you only hear about the top scientists, the top lawyers, the top doctors go to this university. Presidents have gone to this university. But what I realized is there's a lot of people just like me that are here working as staff, supporting the faculty, supporting these huge figures, and I would fit in perfectly.
We here at Weatherford College, we think it's great that you got your start at WC, and now you've been at Harvard since what, 2001? I mean, this is...
Yeah, almost early next year, it'll be 25 years.
It's amazing. So let's talk about, you grew up in Herman, Missouri. What kind of community is that?
So it's a little town of about 2,700 people.
Wow.
That is 75 miles west of St. Louis, right along the Missouri River. It was a town that was settled by German settlers in the 1830s. A pretty rural area, a lot of farming. And that's, my parents had moved there for a job, and it was a really great place to grow up. You could be free to ride your bikes around town and, have a little, just be a regular kid. And our school system was really good for a small town. We had sports, which I got involved with. I actually credit my great aunt, Betty Jo Graber, for giving me my first basketball.
So that is that's the connection to Weatherford right there.
That's my connection, family connection. And she gave me my first basketball when we visited. I think I was 3 when we went down to Weatherford to visit her. She took me to the gym, and it became something that I was interested in from then on. My dad was thrilled about it because he had played basketball in high school, so he was thrilled that I was going to play a sport that he played. And yeah, that interest in basketball never changed through school, through high school, and that's what really, in looking at colleges, I really wanted to play basketball, and Weatherford College gave me that opportunity.
I assume it was Coach Bob McKinley
yes.
that you studied under here at Weatherford College, and with the connection of Betty Jo Graber, longtime coach at WC. Mm-hmm. And so when you come from Missouri, by the way, you were describing Missouri, and I think Walt Disney grew up in a small Missouri town. For some reason,
yes.
that made me think of your upbringing in a very small,
yes.
Missouri
Yep.
town, and so pretty neat. Seems like a good place to grow up. But you come to another good place, Weatherford, Texas, and what was your experience like here at Weatherford College?
It was a great experience. I mean, I loved playing basketball for the Lady Coyotes. I loved being on campus. The faculty, I think in every class I took, I can't think of a bad class that I had. It was so welcoming. I felt like I was a part of something, and being from a small town and being far away from home, it really helped me adjust to college life. And I think, I wouldn't, if I had it to do over again, I would do the same exact thing, because there's a lot of life lessons I learned at Weatherford College that prepared me for the next steps.
In preparation for this conversation, by the way, we're talking to Jessica Cundiff. In preparation for this conversation, I looked at a nomination that someone sent in for when you won the Distinguished Alumnus Award a number of years ago here at WC, and it talked about your friendships and associations with students from all over the world when you were here in Weatherford, Texas. And that must have impacted you as well.
Yes, I mean, I had met, I believe we had some German exchange students when I was in high school. But on the basketball team, I had teammates from Panama, teammates from Slovakia, teammates from Australia. So I really got a chance to learn about their countries and the different foods they would eat, helping them adjust to life here in the U.S. And I've kept in touch with a lot of my teammates. Those that have actually had one of my teammates from Slovakia. I was visiting Prague, and she was living there in the Czech Republic. And just on an off chance, we were Facebook friends, and I sent her a message and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in Prague for a week. would you be able to get together? So we had dinner one evening and reminisced about our days at Weatherford College and how much fun we had and how important a part it was in our lives and what we went on to do. So
incredible.
I'm one of probably many students, especially a lot of the international students that may have come to play different sports and things that had a very similar experience.
Well, you moved from Weatherford College to Missouri State and then KU, Kansas, and for undergraduate and graduate. And I assume that's when you really developed a love for paleontology.
Yes, I knew. I mean, I've had an interest in rocks from a very young age. My mom said I used to, as soon as I could walk, I'd be out in the yard picking up rocks. She'd find them in my pockets, hear them clunking around in the dryer. So it's just, there for some reason, and a number of people have asked me this, why rocks? I was like, I don't know. I just had a fascination. Through school science class, I think in fourth grade, we learned about geology and that geologists study rocks, and that was pretty much it. That's what I want to do. And then some of the rocks I picked up had fossils in them, and that just kind of where my interest shifted. My parents were very supportive of that interest and would take me to museums and to national parks and things as a kid. And then, so I knew when I was at Weatherford College that I would be transferring to a 4-year college and majoring in geology. So I did that at Missouri State and then went on to grad school at Kansas. But Kansas is where I really discovered museum collections. My grad advisor suggested I use the collections there, and I enjoyed it so much. I'm like, how can I do this for a living? How do I go about having a career in this? Because this is what really excites me, and I could see myself doing this for many decades.
Isn't it interesting that probably something you didn't know existed in high school has become your career?
Yes, it's that shows the importance of that. A lot of times kids are exposed to things that they had no idea, and that becomes the one thing that they want to do. So the importance of letting the young people know that there's all these career paths out there that you could pursue that you don't even know about yet.
So let's fast forward to when you joined Harvard, and now you've been there, as you said, since 2001. Let's talk about some of the things that you get to deal with and some of the more interesting pieces that you're able to catalog and study, like maybe something that's incredibly old or unusual. Can you give me a couple of examples?
So I have one instance. I do a fair number of collection tours for the different Harvard classes. And this has happened to me a number of times that a student will ask me if something happens and the building catches on fire, and you could only save one specimen, what specimen would that be? And I think early on I was a little undecided, but we do have one specimen that really just shocked me when I first saw it, when I interviewed here. I had asked one of the staff, what's the coolest specimen that you've seen in the collection? And so she went and got it and showed me the label, and it is a fossil sand dollar that was collected by Charles Darwin on the voyage of the Beagle.
Wow.
So I was getting to see something that Charles Darwin collected. So that is probably the most amazing thing that I've seen in our collection. We have probably every collection here. We've got 10 different research collections, and every collection probably has a story like that of some amazing bird or mammal that was collected by an important figure or is just so old that it's maybe been around longer than the museum has been here.
There's a photo on your, I guess it's kind of your homepage at the Museum of Comparative Zoology at Harvard, and you're holding, or you're next to, it looks like a giant snail, and this thing is probably 16 inches across. I don't know if you know what I'm referring to, but
Yes,
almost like a
yeah.
ram's horn.
It is. That is one of our ammonites from our, and I'm standing in front of our oversized shelving. So we have some very large fossils. Even we have some ammonites even bigger than that would take 2 to 3 people to move around.
Wow. What would you say is one of the larger pieces that you have?
So we have a fossil nautiloid that's related. They're related to ammonites, but they're, instead of the shell being coiled, it's straight. And this is probably, I don't know, easily 10 feet, 12 feet long.
Wow.
That we have in the collection space. So that's always a favorite to show the students when they come through.
That's incredible. Again, talking to Jessica Cundiff here on Coyote Tales. Before we let you go, Jessica, I want to ask you about just what life is like in the Boston area. Such a different part of the country than we live in North Texas, and you've been there a couple of decades. What's it like in a city like Boston?
I think what was interesting to me moving here is that in an hour or so drive, maybe less, depending where you are, you can be at the ocean or you can go to the mountains. And I think pretty much being from a landlocked state, being able to, just as you walk through Boston and then you go, in the harbors, you can just walk up. There's the ocean. There's a bunch of boats. So something that was that I was not used to seeing growing up
in Missouri. That's right. Well, and
so
really,
I also think the food and just the diversity of people. You meet people from all over the world, and there's, name a type of food and you can find it somewhere in the Boston area.
Right. Well, growing up in Missouri, then coming to North Texas, then going to Missouri State, then going to Kansas. Yeah, this is a very different.
Yes.
This is very, very different.
Very different, but I have, the thing is that there are other Midwesterners here. So I have found the other Midwesterners. The University of Kansas has a pretty active alumni group, so I've met other folks from Kansas and Missouri through there. So you find the people that are from where you're from. Right.
Well, if you're ever in North Texas, please swing by Weatherford College and say hello to everybody here. And you got to know that folks here are proud of you. And if we're ever up in Boston, maybe we'll say hello to you.
Sure. Yes, more than welcome. I'd be happy to show you our collection.
Jessica Cundiff at the Harvard University Museum of Comparative Zoology. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Jessica Cundiff. If you'd like to hear other versions and other editions of Coyote Tales, you can go to the Weatherford College YouTube page or to the Coyote radio station app. For Weatherford College, I'm Brent Baker.